Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a Conquest video, and we are looking at our latest Datacron set, number 19, Wayward Wayfinder. And we're going to try and do this very quickly. We're going to go over the level 3 and level 6 abilities. Not comprehensive, just the ones that I like, because some of them are just not even worth talking about. Then we're going to transition to my overall evaluation of the crons, how I'm breaking them up between the must-haves, the solid tier, and then the nice tier. Then we'll go in and break down my individual thoughts on each one and why they have that placement. But you can be in and out of this video very quickly if you just want to see my overall positions. Now, as weak as the overall quality of this set are in terms of the characters and level abilities, the stats here are actually really nice. This is a little bit more rare. We're getting crit damage, offense, a little crit chance, defense penetration. These are all very powerful stats. So we could be actually having a lot of fun building out the stat portion of these sets. Even the potency here is something I like on Afra. And as sets are coming and going, we can be swapping in some of these stats just temporarily to boost up certain squads. With our level 3 alignment abilities, I like 3 dark side and 2 light side abilities, so just get a good mix of these. If there's a particular combo that I think is going to be strong, we will be talking that as we go through each of the level 9 abilities. But in general, with the dark side, I like 2 buffs. Creating offense stacking could be a little squad dependent because not all dark side squads offer a lot of buffs, like think the Sith squads. They're very heavy on the debuffs. And then starting the battle off with 25% turn meter, that's probably going to be worth getting a lot of those. That's going to be very strong. And then basic ability equals crit chance up, crit damage up, offense up, also very strong. And something to think about with attacks out of turn, like with a trooper squad, that could be boosting some of what's going on. Just a question of, is that better than starting off a match with 25% turn meter? That's probably preferable on a squad where you want to get a turn meter train going early. Now with our light side, crit hit for enemies, get stacking crit damage. So AoE heavy teams, Dash is going to love that. Radis, Leia. There's a number of squads where it's going to work, and we're going to get more into it. We will want some of those, and those are going to relate back to some level 9 crons. And then starting the encounter with plus 15% health and max protection. Get as many of those as you can. That's going to be pretty universally used by any light side squad. Now with our level 6 faction abilities, again, I'm just going to touch on the ones that I think are going to be particularly useful with the unaligned force users. Ally defeats an enemy, take a bonus turn. That's going to be very good. You're going to want a number of those. We'll talk more about it later, but Ahsoka, Fulcrum, that's going to be very useful with that synergy. Grant a buff equaling turn meter. Think the Inquisitors for that. That's going to be very useful. And then fall below 50% health, reduce cooldowns, gain turn meter, possibly Sir Junda. You could also use that with the Inquisitors. Could also be useful on a Rey squad. With our Rebels, there's 3 abilities that I think are really worth going after here. Attacks out of turn equals a 25% chance to remove 10% turn meter. So think like a CLS squad where there's a lot of counters. We're going to see a lot of attacks out of turn, plus with Chupio assisting on every turn, lots of opportunities to be removing turn meter. And then think like a character like Jabba, he gets his turn meter removed. We've already seen certain CLS squads be boosted enough by a Datacron to counter a Jabba. The potential is here with this level 6 ability. Also, critical hits, that ally gains 10% offense. That's also going to be good. Could also be an option for the CLS squad. And then special ability, gain riposte. That one I don't like quite as much, but I still like it. With the Imperial Troopers, we actually have a lot of choices because I actually like most of these. But in the past, one that we have used and we've liked is the last one. Allies gain offense equal to 400% current defense, lose 50% defense until the end of the battle. You can use that with Veers, you can use that with Iden. I'm not sure if I'd want to use it though with the Remnants and a Zerg lead, just because we kind of want Zerg to be pretty tanky and it's going to make him a little less tanky. For that Zerg squad, the Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, we could consider the lose max protection, gain that much max health and grit, but I also think an ability like fall below additional 50% health gain damage immunity. That's also going to be very useful. And then attack out a turn, remove turn meter. You could use that on a Veer squad, and you can just see how that's going to help perpetuate a turn meter gain, because attacks out of turns are going to be happening a lot on a Veer squad. Although using a Veer squad these days means we're pulling away from other squads that we may prefer to be using. We just got to consider some of these things if there's a give and take with some of these options. I also don't hate the full health and protection deal 100% damage. That is just something where if you're going through, moving on through a battle, you may not always have those conditions. Could work well on an Iden squad though, where there's enough recovery where that condition is still going to be triggered. Now with the Tuskens, there's really only two that I would consider. The blind, that's actually going to be very important for one of the level 9 crons, so we'll be returning to it. And then otherwise, ally falling below 100% health, gaining a bonus turn, that's going to be pretty useful, especially with a squad where you want to be utilizing that momentum, taking a lot of turns and doing a lot of damage. So I can see that one being very useful with Chieftain. With set 19, Wayward Wayfinder, this is how I'm tiering out the set. Now within those tiers, these are not in any particular order, and some of these are better or worse than others. We could even make some debates moving between tiers, but overall, this is how I'm feeling about them. With our must-haves, we got Ahsoka, Fulcrum, Han, CLS, Stormtrooper Han, Piett, and Range. With our solid, we've got a C-3PO, Lando, Cal, Padawan Sabine, Magma, Chieftain, and Raider. And then our nice, because I'm being nice, we've got Cat, Captain Han, Snowtrooper, Death, Warrior, Shaman, and Aurora. A number of those are going to be skippable. And we will be going through each of these, starting with the must-have tiers in order of these images. But before we do that, this is how I am breaking down these Datacrons based on where my roster is at. And this is not in terms of how good I think these Datacrons are. This is a reflection of my readiness for these crons. So everything in these 3 levels of ready, we are grabbing all of these crons. Whether or not I think they are good or not, it's just because I can use them. And we don't always know when or in what order we are going to get the crons or how many refreshes we're going to be able to do on them. Ahsoka, we don't have her. We're free to play. It's going to be several months before I get her. But what has usually happened with every one of these characters or sets when we don't have them fully farmed is we're able to at least get a couple weeks, even a month, like a final season of usage out of those crons. And I do expect that to happen with Ahsoka and Padawan Sabine. We'll be able to use her as soon as we're done with General Syndulla. It does mean like it might only be like a week or 2 of usage of that cron, but who knows where that's going to fall within the cadence of a Grand Arena season. The pending tier here, these are where I don't have a squad fully ready. Now maybe in 3v3 we could use 1 or 2 of these. I do think some of these are going to be semi-usable or even very good, like Range Trooper. If you happen to have those characters at Relics, maybe you should be going for them. We'll talk more about it. But for my roster, it's a little bit more work for me to get them ready. I'm not going to be able to just throw it into an Iden squad. I'm going to have to do 2-3 Relics in order to be able to use it in an Iden squad. That's why it's something that I'm going to be a little bit more thoughtful with, because I don't want it to cause me to delay getting Balin Skull or Ahsoka, and that's the same kind of deal with the skip tier here with all the Tuskens. I just don't have a roster that can really accommodate them, although technically I could do a single Relic in 3v3. Maybe we do Chieftain and we put together a squad with Raider and Aurora. I just don't think those Datacrons are enough of a difference maker to warrant me using my resources in that kind of way. First up, we have Ahsoka Tano, our new GL. With this ability, start of the battle, Spectre allies gain Mariah's Wisdom. The big thing here is everybody using Mariah's Wisdom is going to help generate charge towards the ultimate, and usually we're only going to be able to throw Mariah's Wisdom onto a single character, and it's going to be a gradual process for them to start contributing towards ultimate, and the ultimate getting charged faster and faster. Now it's immediate, so it means that ultimate is going to be happening very quickly, and you're going to be able to use it that much more often. So this is a clear must-have. It's going to completely change how well this squad functions. So again, if you don't ever, prep in advance. I'm always advocating to prep these crons in advance. You've seen me just recently, this entire season, using the Enoch cron and the Morgan Elsbeth cron. Went for 3 seasons. I wasn't able to use it, but I made sure I was ready to take advantage, and it has been a complete game changer for this most recent season. Next up, Fulcrum. And if you're working towards Ahsoka, that means you're probably going to have a pretty good Fulcrum. Mine will be brought up to Relic 9 very shortly. Now this is one where it's going to be that much more important if you have the Territory War Omicron. I don't tend to put those on, but if you do, this is a no-brainer. Whenever the enemy takes a turn, Fulcrum gains a bonus turn. During this turn, Fulcrum deals 100% more damage. This is a cron, though, that I would pair with the level 6 ability, Defeat an Enemy, Gain a Bonus Turn. That just means extra bonus turns in which to get that 100% damage. Now, this is something that I still think is good, even if you don't have the Territory War Army, although be careful using it. I don't know if it's going to work with the Seer Juna squad, because we need to remember the mechanics of a Seer Juna squad, especially with her saber throw ability, where she is increasing the cooldown every time an ally takes a turn. She's decreasing the cooldown when the enemy takes a turn. So with Fulcrum taking all those turns, it may mean you can't throw that saber from Seer Juna. So I might make sure not to use Fulcrum either on that squad or using that cron with it. So if you do want to use this cron in a Grand Arena context, maybe we look at like an Akbar Leia Ami Squad combo. That could be an interesting place for it. Maybe we want to go crazy and throw it on a Leia squad and see what happens. Geo Leia, that is. I don't think I'm being particularly clear here. This is definitely a good one. Next, we're looking at Han Solo. With Han Solo, this is when he's defeated, he gets revived with 100% health, gain protection over time, take a bonus turn. A lot going on there, considering he's the likeliest candidate for an early death. This solves one of the weak points of the squad, going to make it that much more dangerous. I would pair it with either the crits have stacking offense or the attack out of turns with the turn meter removal here. Probably that one. I think that's my preference. This is definitely a must-have cron, and I think the 5v5 preference for a CLS squad. But CLS also has a very nice Datacron, and with his, when CLS damages somebody with a special ability, an enemy that doesn't already have Armor Shred is going to be inflicted with Armor Shred. And then when CLS uses a basic onto an enemy with Armor Shred, he's going to expose that enemy, and CLS is going to gain protection up stacking for 2 turns. So he's going to get some survivability and make them a little bit more vulnerable to damage. So this is a solid cron. Definitely get it, but a couple issues here. One, this is an unaligned force user cron, which means if we're using it in 5v5 with a CLS squad, that means the rest of the squad as a rebel squad is not going to gain a level 6 boost. This is why that I think Han is going to be our preference in 5v5 with the traditional squad, because we're going to have full functionality. Although I still think this is going to be good because the level 9 is just that good. So we're just going to want to consider it for 3v3, or we may be considering CLS differently in 5v5. I think that very unlikely, though. I'm just thinking we're going to split up our crons. That's probably how I'm going to be handling it. Both definite must-haves. Now next up, we have Stormtrooper Han, and at different iterations of as I was preparing this information out, I had him on the bottom tier. But the more that I considered it, and considering where we're going to use him, that just elevated the cron, because the way that he's going to be used is on a GL Leia squad. And what this cron will do is deal 5% more damage per relic amplifier level on all allies present at the start of the battle. And on a squad like Leia, we're probably going to have pretty high relics, and the higher your relics on a Leia squad, the more valuable this is going to be. I'm still not convinced how much of a damage dealer this is going to make him. That's why I felt a little bit softer on it, but the fact that it's boosting one of our GLs makes it a must-have, because you're going to be able to throw that Leia on defense, and it is going to make that Leia that much better if that's how you like to use your Leia. Otherwise, use her on offense and see if we can make things different. But the reason why I care less about it on offense is probably not going to alter counters. On defense, though, it may make her harder to counter. Now this one Definitely pair it with the level 3 crit damage stacking and the level 6 crits gain stacking offense. That's going to make the Leia squad that much more dangerous. And with Leia's AoE abilities, we should see that in action, because her AoE will trigger the level 3 ability with the stacking crit chance, and then the crits are going to cause that stacking offense with the level 6. So it's going to make Leia that much more offensive. But that's also one of the reasons why I'm a little bit softer on this, because I think it's more valuable to make Leia tanky than offensive. But maybe this Cron surprises me. Still, it's going to be a must-have. Go for it. Like me, I previously brought my Han up to relics for the very recent time that he had a Datacron. Next, Admiral Piett, and this is what I mean that this is not in any particular order. This may be the best Cron in the set. First time defeated and there's one active ally, revive all other defeated allies. Other allies recover 100% health, protection, gain 100% turn meter, and 100% offense until the end of the battle. This is just a monster, especially if you have Lord Vader. It's going to make Lord Vader a major pain, because it means we have to take out Piett first, which opens us up to attacks from Maul. And even after we take out Piett, the rest of the squad is going to get triggered with that turn meter gain and offense gain and unleash a huge attack. This Cron means the counters have shrunk, which is what differentiates it between other Crons. This one is one that we have to plan around and work around. With the level 6, I think we have options. I don't feel like one is clear cut. Same with the level 3, but I do think the 25% turn meter to start the battle is where I would look for the level 3 ability. That gives an early advantage to the squad. Now, in terms of countering this thing, I think we might want to shut down that turn meter gain, which means maybe we're looking at squads like Leia that punish turn meter, or squads like JMK that just turn off the turn meter. But make sure you're prepared for this one, because it's going to change the next few months. Last one, the must-have tier, is Range Trooper. This one is one I'll probably grab the Cron. I don't know if I'm ever going to use it. Now what this is going to do is when Range Trooper crits an enemy, it's going to gain 10% crit damage, defense penetration, and offense stacking until the end of the battle. That's an excellent Datacron. And if you happen to have him at Relics, congrats. For the rest of us, it's just going to be a question of, do we think it's good enough to warrant spending resources to use it? And for me, I don't think I have a home for him in 5v5. My only question is, do I want to grab it for 3v3 and just do his Relics? Because then I could maybe pair him with Stark or with Stormtrooper with Iden, and that's something that I could potentially do, because that is only a single relic instead of 2 or 3 relics. But again, I'm going for Ahsoka and Baylan Skoll, and I do not want to slow down those projects in order to utilize this Cron. If I happen to be ready for those characters before the Cron expires, then we can consider maybe using this for a short period of time. Kind of like what I did with Plo Koon this last time. Now transitioning into our solid tier, we have C-3PO, and this is one that I really debated about, where do I put it in the solid tier or the nice tier, but ultimately it landed in the solid tier because I just think I really like the plug-and-play viability of this thing. It's 15% turn meter when allies use a special. Now in a CLS squad, that's going to be happening frequently, but we're not going to use it because the Han Cron is that much better. It's just not going to supersede that. So we got to ask our questions where we're going to use it, and I think we have a number of options. Like we could throw it on a Cadme squad. That could be pretty interesting after the Master Qui-Gon Cron expires and we don't have a clear replacement. This could turn into his home. We could look at like a Leia squad if you don't have Stormtrooper Han ready, because I would definitely prefer Stormtrooper Han, but if you don't have him at Relics, I don't know that I would do it. I don't know if it's that much of a must-have. I just like the thing. And we could look at throwing it like on a Padme squad. I just think we have a lot of options, and what it means is we're going to be generating a lot of turn meter, and then we can call C-3PO for a mass assist. And the flexibility that we have with it is why I like the thing and why I think it's maybe worth keeping in our back pocket as an option. Next up, we have the Lando Calrissian Cron, and this is a really good Cron. I even considered putting it at the must-have tier. Ultimately, though, I didn't, because I don't think it's really going to alter any counters, either against it or what it can counter. Like, I don't think it's going to punch up significantly. I just think it's a really good mid-tier Cron, and what I think it's going to do is take like a Sana squad and it's going to make it usable. We're either going to throw Sana on defense with this Cron or use it as some offensive depth and flexibility. What it's going to do is when Lando crits, he's going to gain 10% crit damage, defense penetration, and offense stacking up to 200%. So we can combine this with that level 3, where if we crit 4 characters or 4 times in a turn, we're going to gain 5% crit damage stack until the end of the battle. And with the level 6 ability, where if we critically hit an enemy, we're going to gain 10% offense stacking for 2 turns. So you can imagine with Lando's AoE ability, just hitting 4 characters, getting a bunch of stacking crit damage and offense, so the damage is going to really ramp up quickly. Then think about the squad. Sana Starros has an AoE ability. She's getting that level 6 and level 3 ability. We're going to have Rolo on that squad, again getting those attacks off and getting that stacking offense and damage. And then think of how the mechanics of, like with Rolo, where if she's getting those crit hits, that means her cooldowns are getting reset quickly. Something similar with Lando too. So we're going to be just having a mass rain of those AoE abilities. I can see this being very good. It's definitely a Cron that you are going to want to be including. We'll just have to see how high it punches up, if at all. But expect to see a lot of this thing. For instance, though, Melgus is going to shut this thing down. So just keep that in mind. Next up, Kestis. This is the one that we're going to want to use with the Searjuna squad. Got plus 5% max health and max protection. Damage received is decreased by 15%. This isn't even that good. I even, in my first iteration of making out this video, I put it in the nice tier. Didn't think it was that great. As far as level 9 abilities go, it's fairly minimal. It's very Cal Kestis focused. But usually when I do those battles, Cal's one of the first characters that I lose. So it's either him or Fulcrum that I'm losing when I do these matches. And Fulcrum's about to go up to Relic 9. But I do think it's going to make him better and the squad better. So that's enough that when you already have the character at Relics, or I do, and I think it is a character worth taking to Relics. If you don't, I know for me it was a recent one, but it means being able to put Crons on your Searjuna squad, which is a very good squad, then do it. Like I did it to use the Malicos Cron. But as far as level 9 abilities go, a little bit lower on the priority in this solid tier. Kind of the same deal with our next one here with Padawan Sabine. This one, I think, it's basically the same one as C-3PO, or it is the same one as C-3PO, gain 15% turn meter when others use a special ability. This one you're not even going to really need if you have Ahsoka, so I just skip it all together if you have Ahsoka. But for players like me who are building up towards Ahsoka, there may be a couple weeks where I'll go after it. But if you miss out on this one, it's completely skippable. It's not a big deal. Just when I'm done farming Padawan Sabine, I'm not going to be able to use it until I'm done farming General Syndulla, and by the time I'm done farming General Syndulla, that means I can be unlocking Ahsoka. So we're talking a really short window in which I'm using a Syndulla lead squad where I can actually throw on a Relics and Datacrons onto the thing. Now Magmatrooper, this one's nice. I only have it at this tier because I think Ranged Troopers is just that much more clearly better. But what this does is Magmatrooper, when he uses a basic, he's going to gain protection up and 50% turn meter. He already has a lot of turn meter gain and turn meter removal mechanics, so we can see this working in conjunction, meaning he's going to be taking a good amount of turns. And then when he damages an enemy with his special, he's going to inflict fear. And remember, his special is an AoE ability. That means AoE fear, and that thing is unevadable and unresistible. Well, the Cron makes it such. So now we have our Ranged Trooper taking a bunch of turns, throwing out the AoE, inflicting fear on everybody. It's not one where I'm going to be taking him up to Relics, because I'd rather do it on Ranged Trooper, and I'm not going to do both. But if you do have your Magmatrooper at Relics, this could be very nice on an Iden squad. Prefer the Ranged Trooper one, but this is not a bad second place. Now, for the first of our Tuskens, we got the Chieftain, basic ability, other allies gain 25% turn meter. That's pretty good. He uses basic a lot, probably best of the Tusken Crons. And with this one, I think I'd probably do the level 6 ability where when the allies fall below 100% health, gain a bonus turn. And next up, the final of the solid tier, we have the Raider. And with this thing, keep in mind this is clearly meant to be combined with a level 6 ability that inflicts blind, where if a character doesn't have blind, he will inflict blind. Because the idea here is when he evades, He's going to gain 50% turn meter. He's going to reapply blind. He's going to gain crit chance up and damage up. So it's going to be nice. It's going to boost the squad. It's not a game changer. If you already have them at relics, it's going to be solid. Now entering the home stretch with our nice tier. This is going to get pretty fast because a number of these we don't have too much to really say. Cats, though, is worth highlighting. This one's not very good. Start of her turn, 20% chance to gain 50% defense penetration. So we're talking about a 1 in 5 chance for a big hit, which is going to be very inconsistent and annoying. It's pretty weak Cron. But we have to consider how we're going to actually utilize the Cron and the character, which is what elevated the Stormtrooper Han Cron. And it means, Cat, we are going to be using it with a JMK squad. And that alone is going to make it worth having. I just don't think it's going to be very good. But when we don't have any alternatives, it's going to be the Cron that we utilize. And because it's an unaligned force user Cron, it means we don't have a level 6 ability with our JMK squad. So we're not going to be seeing a huge boost there. There are going to be matches, though, where the 20% just hits more often than normal, and it's going to be that much better. Although, what I would consider here, pay attention to the stats, because maybe it's the stats that we're re-rolling with this Cron that we're pairing with JMK. Next up, Captain Han. I don't really have much to say about this. I just ordered this in terms of like Rebels, Troopers, Tuskens. That's the order that we're going on. It's arbitrary, and this Han Cron does basically nothing. Self-cleanse, recover health. That's pretty useless. We can just forget this thing exists. Now, Snowtrooper, this one's actually pretty interesting. The question, though, is how does CG want us to use this thing? Because what this does, and on its face, it sounds like it's pretty good. Crit an enemy, gain damage immunity, 25% turn meter, and blind that enemy. If the enemy was target locked, Snow gains protection up, stacking, retribution, speed up. A bunch of great stuff. The problem is, who's going to inflict that target lock? No Trooper inflicts target lock, which means we're probably relying on an Imperial Pro Droid. What kind of squad are we using then? Are we using a Pelp Lead? Are we throwing it on that Lord Vader where we're going to like supersede Piett? I don't think so. So I just don't see how we would consider using this thing, because I'm not blowing up a Starkiller squad in order to do this, unless we're doing like Seer Lead Starkiller, and then we're wondering what we're going to do with our Palpatine. So maybe we're doing like Palpatine, Mara Jade, Snowtrooper, IPD. Like, is that what we're doing? So it's just, that's why it's at this tier. Maybe somebody finds a use out of it, and if you already have them at relics and you figure it out, let me know. But I am not going to take him up to relics to figure out a character where I just don't see how we're utilizing this Cron. But it may surprise us and be quite nice. Now, Deathtrooper, this one is not like that. What this does is deal damage, remove 25% turn meter. Not terrible, I guess, but it's still not good. And considering the quality of the other Trooper Crons, then we're definitely not using this thing, so don't worry about it. Next up, the Tusken Warrior. This one's actually a pretty nice Cron. Receive damage reflected back as true damage. That's solid enough. The problem is Chieftain and Raiders are better, so it's not really worth going after. Next up, we have the Shaman. Not much to say here, because this is the exact same Cron as Captain Han Solo. Self-cleanse and a heal. This is pretty worthless. Skip it, forget it. And Aurora, kind of the same deal, just a slightly better Cron. This is the when an ally uses special ability, gain 15% turn meter. We liked it with some of the other characters like C-3PO, Padawan Sabine. Those characters where we can see a little bit more usage, but there's no reason to use this thing with Aurora. He's not even that good of a character. And with the number of Crons that just have the same level 9 ability, I just kind of feel like CG phoned in a couple of these things heading into the holiday break. So we'll wrap up. I don't recall if I highlighted it, but you can see here with the color coordination what we're targeting and the Crons that I want, but may not have everybody ready yet, but maybe we'll work towards it. And I do go pretty aggressively after Crons. We've talked about it on this channel a number of times, so check out some of the other videos. And with that, we will wrap up this video. Over here though, because Conquest is starting up, the Conquest series of videos related to this series of Conquest 17. We will have up top the overview of all of the sectors and feats. That was my thoughts prior to the start of Conquest. And then as we went through each sector, we have sector by sector videos as well, breaking down how I actually tackled them. And in some cases there are a little bit of differences, and what I figured out through it, just how I got more and more efficient through the experience of playing through the sector. So thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This still plays Galaxy of Heroes.